Welcome back, listeners, to episode 104 of Sitcom Showdown. I'm Steve, and I'm here with Jeff.
Hello.
It's good to be back.
Yeah.
Today we're covering an episode of an English sitcom called Barbara, which was recommended to us by a listener called Jonno. He's our listener and regular correspondent, so Jonno kindly sent this recommendation. In fact, multiple recommendations through. This is just the one I've selected.
Right.
Yes, so let me give you an edited description of Barbara from Wikipedia. Barbara Liversidge is a no-nonsense, outspoken, nosy, middle-aged doctor's receptionist with a sharp tongue. She has been married to her husband Ted, a mild-mannered taxi driver, for 40 years. The pair live in West Yorkshire with their 20-something son Neil, who drifts between jobs and a succession of short-term relationships. Their daughter, the long-suffering Linda, is married to Martin Pond, a TV presenter who has his own slot on the local news, called Pond Life. I think that's pretty funny. Which generally involves him making a fool of himself. Jean is Barbara's appearance-obsessed sister, and Barbara's colleague at the doctor's surgery, Doreen, often regales Barbara with tales of the bizarre situations she and her never-seen husband Clive find themselves in. Now, I should say that we're not going to actually meet several of those characters in the episode we're covering this time round, but we may get back to them another time. Much of the humour revolves around Barbara's tactlessness and her family's fear of getting on the wrong side of her. While the family often complain about her, they usually find they struggle to manage when Barbara doesn't take charge. Although the show initially appears to have a very traditional sitcom setting, surreal humour is frequently used, such as Barbara baking a cake that looks like Judi Dench, and a taxidermist friend of Ted's stuffing and mounting his dead wife.
Yeah,
Now,
this is, I think they've made an extremely good point because as we were talking off air just beforehand, I've only seen 2 episodes of this and I thought it's all very well laid out in a realistic way, and I didn't pick up on this surrealness that's clearly in the other episodes.
Come on. Oh, I'm going to argue later that it's in this episode. But
right, okay.
Yes, I was going to say I did go hunting for the one about the taxidermist stuffing and mounting his dead wife, but that's not on YouTube, sadly.
And it depends on levels of surreal, because I'm talking, Goodies, Mighty Boosh, Black Books.
Oh, well.
And I'd argue that, they don't break the laws of physics in this one, but they might.
No. I think they go there a
They
little
strain
bit.
the laws of credulity, but they don't break the laws of physics.
Yes, I'd agree with that. So this episode is called Flood. It's episode 2 of season 3. I think I've got that right. Mm-hmm. And what else can I tell you about Barbara? Well, as Jonno pointed out in his message to us, he says it's the first UK sitcom to use a multi-writing team in the style of American sitcoms. Mm-hmm. So that's notable. 3 series were televised on ITV from 1999 to 2003, but they followed a pilot which was broadcast in 1995. So there's this strange gap of 3 years in between.
That's very unusual.
Yes, and there were a few cast changes in that from the pilot to the actual series. Ooh. Every episode of I guess it's the first and third series, the 1999 and 2002 series, were in ITV's top 30 weekly rankings, and audience figures frequently averaged around 5 to 7 million viewers. 17 of the episodes winning their slots, meaning they were the most watched shows at the time of broadcast.
Far out. Okay.
So that's not too shabby. All 3 series have been released on DVD. I know you'll be interested to know this. Mm-hmm. And there's a complete set released as well. But I don't think it ever aired in Australia.
No, I'd never heard of it.
Yeah, I'd never heard of it before we got the message. So, yes, and I think I saw a comment on YouTube similar to that as well. So, yes, I think we'll just assume that it never made its way down here.
Sometimes with various shows, it might be the era of life that you're in. So, there might be like a decade of sitcoms that you kind of miss because you're at that period in life where you might be a young parent and you're working all day, you get home, you're knackered, you're looking after these infants. And you know what I mean? You'll miss 5 years worth of sitcoms.
Or you might be in party mode.
Yeah, or you might be in party mode. Yeah, well, exactly. That's darn right. It's one of those things that ultimately it's good because it gives you stuff to revisit later in life.
Yep. So let me tell you about the 3 regulars that are going to appear in this episode that we're talking about, Flood. So, of course, we've got Barbara, and she's played by Gwen Taylor. I was a bit surprised I'd never come across Gwen before once I was getting into this research. Yeah. Yes. Anyway, Gwen was born in February 1939, and she's known for her roles as Amy Pearce in the sitcom Duty Free. Oh. Which, do you remember us talking about that before?
No.
So Duty Free was one of Eric Chappell's sitcoms.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is the one where the couples go to Spain on holiday and meet up there.
Yep. Is he the only When I Laugh and millions of other sitcoms? Yeah, I like Eric Chappell.
Yep. Also, of course, known for this show, Barbara. She was in Heartbeat, Coronation Street, EastEnders, and the EastEnders was a recent role. That's 2021 to 2023, so she's still in the biz.
Holy moly. That's not bad, because she'd be in her 80s now.
Yeah.
So, pretty good. Everyone in this show has been in Coronation Street.
Yeah.
Yeah, I looked up the, I'm sure you're about to tell us, but some of the people who just come in for little cameos in this, the minor roles, even though they haven't done a lot of TV, they're in Coronation Street.
Well, I'll have to ask you how you found that out later, because I couldn't really find out who these
these no-name worms were.
Yeah. So her other TV roles include appearances on Ripping. I'm just picking the comedic highlights out of those. So Ripping Yarns, which is Michael Palin's show. Only When I Laugh, which we've just talked about. Alas, Smith and Jones, and Yes, Prime Minister. Her film appearances include Monty Python's Life of Brian.
Cool.
But she turned down a role in The Meaning of Life, as she thought that being covered in intestines as a man exploded in a restaurant would be tasteless. So I assume that's a reference to Mr. Creosote there.
She missed out being in one of the most memorable scenes in comedy movie history.
She didn't miss out. She chose not to. Be.
She missed out through her own stupidity. Yeah, good.
Yeah, so carrying on with the Python-esque theme here, Eric Idle, who was one of the Pythons, worked with her several times, and he described Gwen as the best comedy actress I ever worked with. She could do anything.
Wow.
And she was nominated for the 1990 BAFTA TV Award for Best Actress, as her role as Rita Simcock in the comedy series A Bit of Ado.
The picture is starting to emerge as to how she's become the lead of this show.
She's obviously done loads of material and in comedy as well, so I'm surprised I've never come across her before. But someone we have come across before. Sam Kelly plays Barbara's husband, Ted Liversidge. Now, Sam's no longer with us. He passed away in 2014, but he also had many roles.
Yeah.
His early roles included appearances in two of the later Carry On films, which were Carry On Dick and Carry On Behind. Yes, I was going to say you don't want to put those two Carry On titles together.
No. Well, you might want to.
Yes. Yeah, so then he went on to have a significant role in the sitcom Porridge as the affable and high-spirited inmate Bunny Warren, who relies on his fellow prisoners in Slade Prison to read his letters from home and blames his incarceration on his inability to read.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I went back and checked, and he was in that episode that we covered.
Oh, really?
In Sitcom Showdown, episode 40 of Porridge, so that was nice. And then, like you've said, Hello Hello came along, and he played German officer Captain Hans Gehring. So he was in Pretty Maids All in a Row, which is the episode of Hello Hello, which we covered in episode number 54.
So that's episode 54 of Sitcom Showdown and episode 40 for Porridge.
Yes, I thought I'd get both of those in. So is he the one that went plop? And
yes, well, yeah, so let's run through that again, shall we? So so to us it sounds like that, but he's saying kla, like the last syllable of Hitler.
So he'd never join in on the first.
Yeah, so klop. Anyway, let's not turn this into hello, hello, but yeah.
Yes, it's a good thing people can't see you throwing Nazi sweets in
that would
the
be
studio
bad.
here. Yes, those two things are his best-loved TV roles, but he also did radio. He played the part of Carter Brandon in the Radio 4 series, or two Radio 4 series, which were Uncle Mort's South Country and Uncle Mort's Celtic Fringe. This is the same writer and characters as the TV sitcom I Didn't Know You Cared. Covered in Sitcom Showdown episode 53.
Oh, okay.
Yes, do you remember
I can usually
Uncle
remember.
Mort and Carter Brandon?
What I loved about that show is the beautiful outdoor, when they're walking along the canal and all this sort of stuff. Have I got the right show?
Yes.
Yeah, and it's the
strange mix of industrial landscape and beautiful.
Yeah. Full of objectionable characters, that was.
Yep. Is there anything else we want to say about Sam before we move on?
Well, we must mention, Steve, that of course he had another memorable role, one-off as Moopah in Black Books, as Manny's dad. And he's playing, I think, not too dissimilar-ish a character to the one we're going to talk about in this show.
Yeah?
Yeah. In that he's sort of an affable, easygoing...
I've forgotten this episode.
...sort of dude. Oh, wow. So
Obviously
Manny's parents came round, Mooma and Moopah. Oh, you're going to have to hit the Black Books again, yeah. It's classic stuff.
So what was their ethnic background?
Yeah,
then?
they were very British.
Why is that just a weird nickname
because
that
like
he had
it's,
for
I
them?
think, well, you and I were never exposed to Moomins, which is a kids' TV show, I think, from Britain. And apologies to the British listeners and anyone else who knows about Moomins. Anyway, so I think it's got something to do with that. I'm very vague on that. I didn't question it, and I didn't
the
Google
listeners
it.
can put us right on that.
Yeah.
And then finally for our cast, because I'm only covering 3, we've got Benedict Sanderford, who plays Barbara and Ted's son, Neil. And Benedict was actually best known for this role as Neil, but he also made guest appearances on Heartbeat, Peak Practice, A Touch of Frost, Touching Evil, At Home with the Braithwaites, Pie in the Sky, that's a good one, Cadfael, This Life, Foyle's War, Midsummer Murders and Coronation Street.
Holy crap.
Yeah, so he did some shows, and now he's working as a drama teacher.
Oh.
He's the head of drama. So that's nice. He's obviously, kept the acting up as part of his role there, so that's good.
He's keeping up appearances.
Yeah. Very good.
So if that's the last of the actors...
Unless did you do any research on these?
Well,
these randos that are here? I couldn't find anything about.
I totally did. So the lady who we're going to find out about that Neil is hooking up with.
Oh yes.
Stephanie Beattie, right? And so she's got exactly the same name as quite a famous-ish mid-level actress in the US.
Yeah.
And so on IMDb, half her roles are in the US and half her roles are in the... So there's been a mix-up, essentially. So Stephanie Beattie 2, on IMDb, you've got your Roman numerals next to you as to which one you are. And, there's been a mix-up on IMDb. But
is there anything more notable to her career than she often gets mixed up with this other...
Well, I can't recall any, but she has done some comedy before. Yeah, absolutely. I seem to think it's somewhere between half a dozen and a dozen credits on IMDb. And the same for the couple that were coming to inspect the house, as we're about to find out. So one of them, Mr. Chandler, the dude who plays Mr. Chandler, who's videoing everything, he, in the very same year, he was accompanying the real estate agent to come and check out this house. He played a character who was a real estate agent in a series called The Estate Agents.
Oh no, he was typecast.
He was typecast. I don't know which one came first, but there you go. So he's cornered the market in real estate related comedies.
Very good. He's just waiting for that one sitcom about some real estate agents.
Stephen Omer or Omer. Yes.
Oh, thanks, Jeff, for supplementing my material there.
No.
Shall we get into a synopsis of the episode?
Yep, well, let's hear the usual stuff and then we'll come back.
Hello. Well, we shall have to move house now. Mind you, we don't need a removal van. We can just float everything down the river on a raft.
Hello. Oh, hello. Is that the flood line? Look, you've kept me waiting for 10 minutes.
Oh, their office is flooded.
The good news is it's stopped raining, so the water level should go down soon.
I suppose it's dry upstairs.
You go and get dressed, and I'll nip out in a minute and get something for our dinner. See me jeans? Didn't you have them when you came in?
There's a phone number I need. Girl I met last night. It's in the pocket.
Goodness sake! It's the bloody water rates!
Yes, so Flood, also the name of a memorable Young Ones episode. And the name of an album by They Might Be Giants. But anyway, we're starting in the lounge room of Ted and Barbara's two-story house. And I think it's important to establish that because, well, it'll become obvious why that's important. It's not a single-level house on the ground floor. She's just arrived to find that the carpet layer, who they've got in to install new carpet, he's just finishing up. And he's installed the wrong colour carpet. You're looking at me a bit quizzically like
I'm trying to remember his name. I think it's somebody Bruce.
Bruce.
Big bloke. He's been in quite a few other shows. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
So this carpet's not sunflower yellow like it should be. No. It's blue. Anyway, she's really giving this guy a piece of her mind. And she gives him what Paddington Bear would call a hard stare.
Mm-hmm. And he caves under the hard stare.
He does. He relents. And he says he's going to come back tomorrow to install the right colour. So she has a win. And we go to the opening credits. Now, the next morning, Ted and Barbara are in bed, and she's complaining about the rain having kept her awake all night. In contrast, he had a fantastic dream about driving Carol Smiley to the airport. I don't know if you know Carol Smiley, but she was the main presenter on BBC One's changing rooms at the time.
Okay. So that's sort of relevant to the show as well.
Yes, because they're trying to do a makeover with their carpet. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. I know Carol Vorderman, but not Carol Smiley.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's obviously why Ted had Carol on the mind. Barbara's not impressed, though, and she tells him to stop eating cheese late at night.
Yeah. Cheese dreams.
Yes.
That's been involved in many a sitcom plot.
I think we've
Cheese dreams.
definitely heard that before.
Oh, yeah.
Ted springs out of bed because they've got this real estate agent coming around with a couple of people to look at the house later. Now, it's not stated, but I assume that's why the carpet's being replaced, to increase the saleability of this house, right? And anyone who's had their house up for sale knows the stress of keeping the place clean and tidy, just in case someone calls up and wants to look at the place. I don't think... Have you
No,
been in that
I've never
situation before?
sold a house.
Yeah.
I've been here since 1998.
Lucky you.
Yes, 25 years.
It's a bit of a stress, especially when you've got young kids around.
Yeah, trying to mess everything up when you've just got it right.
Constantly following them around, trying to keep it clean. Anyway, she seems to have lost a bit of enthusiasm for this because of the stress. So Ted says, remember why we're doing this? And he talks about how they're looking forward to downsizing. And he says there's other more stressful things, like the death of a spouse. She goes, nah.
Yeah,
that wouldn't be more stressful.
No, that's
than
right.
this.
And he also, before that, mentions divorce. And she goes, no. She'd quite happily find a stress-free experience to divorce Ted.
It'd be a weight off her mind.
But
Yes.
I do wonder, Steve, and I do hate to go off track, but if you happen to watch the episode before this, I wonder if there was a thing where they'd set it up in previous episodes that they're planning to move and they're going to do this and they're going to do that. The viewer can pick it up from context, but they wouldn't have just, launched into this thing halfway through a move, would they? With no connection to the previous episode.
No, but I didn't. I dipped into several episodes before I chose this one, but I don't think there was the preceding episode or anything like that.
Okie dokes.
But I think it might just be a long-running thing that they're hoping to get rid of Neil so they can,
fair enough.
make their dreams come true.
Yeah.
Yes, anyway, Barbara heads downstairs a little while later, presumably to put the kettle on, and when she gets to the bottom of the stair, it's revealed that the whole ground floor is flooded. Yeah. And I've got a little clip here.
Oh, listen what they've put about us, Ted. 107 Starkwell Road is a charming family house situated within easy reach of the river. Oh my God!
We've been flooded. Flooded! There's been a flood! Water's coming! It's coming from outside! It's flooded outside as well! There's been a flood.
Do you think so, Ted? And there was me thinking I'd left the kitchen tap dripping. Oh, Ted, it's everywhere!
Now, I don't know how they did this, but the whole set appears to have been put a foot deep in water.
Yeah. I've got a lot of praise for this later on. It's amazing. Yeah.
Anyway, just try and picture that, listeners. It looks like the same set they use every other episode, so...
Yeah.
Yes. Anyway, panic ensues, as you would expect. And one of the first things they try to do is get the valuables off the floor. And the first valuable that Ted goes for is the TV remote.
Yeah.
What a guy. I think she was thinking of the precious family photo albums and...
all that sort of stuff.
Maybe the handed down china and all these sorts of things, but...
The TV remote.
The TV remote.
Yeah, because TVs aren't replaceable.
Yes.
And, we'll come back to the TV later on, listener.
But the good news is he gets help because he discovers Neil, who's been sleeping on the couch under a blanket, and Neil joins in the search.
And I just love
He's
that.
also motivated to find the remote.
Yeah. He's just there on the couch. He's been sleeping and Dad wakes him up and he doesn't realise all this build-up to say, Steve, that this is my first highlight gag of the show.
Oh, the reveal when
'Cause
Neil's under the...
He, as he would, he responds in panic and he goes, Dad, look at all this. Where did all this water come from? And Ted goes, the sky. Which in the retelling isn't very funny, but Sam Kelly makes it hilarious.
He delivers it nicely.
Yeah.
Well, perhaps Neil came home so hammered last night
Yeah.
that he couldn't even make his way up the stairs and he just flaked out on the couch.
Makes total
and then
sense.
proceeded to, in his stupor
Not
sleep
notice.
state,
Yeah.
not notice the rain. Oh, anyway, Barbara's reaction is now one of despair.
Mm-hmm.
And through the rest of the episode, she's the only one that really deals with this flooding situation in what I would describe as a sensible, sane kind of a way.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and this is where some of the surreal humour is going to come in. For example, Ted decides to use the flood as an excuse to destroy all their unwanted household items and claim the cost of them back on insurance. So and he gets Neil involved in this as well.
Well, no, it was Neil's suggestion, I believe.
It was Neil's suggestion.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think they save any valuables before they move to the new
plan.
The new plan, which is to destroy all the unwanted items, stuff the valuables. We're just destroying the bad stuff. Anyway, that's pretty zany. But Barbara steps in as she's the voice of reason.
Yeah,
and reminds him that the limit on their house insurance is a mere, or their house and contents, their contents insurance is a mere £5,000. So then they're frantically trying to pull the things they've just thrown in the water back out of the water.
And to illustrate for the listener, Neil's casually just, flicking through the CD collection,
Neil
picking up
Sedaka.
CD, throwing that in the water, and all the stuff he doesn't like, throw it in the water.
Good stuff. Later that day, the post is delivered, and it goes through the chute in the front door straight into the water. And ironically, yes, it's the water rates being delivered.
Yeah, that's the second in my great gags list.
Oh,
right there.
Perhaps this is the first example of everyone else not really even observing the flood or just behaving as if it wasn't a thing. Like, surely if the house was... Well, firstly, you wouldn't be delivering the mail if there was a flood in the neighbourhood.
No.
But he certainly wouldn't be putting the mail through the door knowing that it's going to essentially go straight into the
I
water.
guess, what else is he going to do, though? But yeah, you're totally right. And it's amazing that is he doing his rounds on foot? Because as we're going to find out later, the real estate agent's car floats away.
Yeah.
So is the postie, what sort of vehicle's the postie in?
Well, a bike, presumably. How do they do it?
Actually, because our posties, Steve-O, have got electric vehicles. Electric bikey sort of carty things that they drive around, and they go zzz, and it'd be game over, and they wouldn't be able to drive those around in the wet.
Absolutely not. They haven't thought about that.
Oy.
Then we get a call from the real estate agent. The real estate agent is calling to say he's got this couple who are coming around, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ted neglects to mention the fact that the house has been flooded and there's a foot of water in the ground floor, which Barbara's she's baffled that he hasn't mentioned this to the real estate agent, because surely no one's going to be interested in looking at the house in these circumstances. Anyway, she moves on, and she's keen to impress when these people come around. So she breaks out the Mr. Sheen and starts polishing the furniture in the flooded lounge. And then this is another one of these great gags is she moves on to watering the plants, which are on the top, one of the top shelves. And she's just got the watering can, which is empty.
Tiny little plastic watering can.
Yeah, she kind of bends over, dunks it into the water that's all over the floor.
Scoops a bunch of,
scoops it up, waters the plant. Good one.
And it got a good laugh from the studio audience.
Yeah.
Now, we're going to take a little clip break here, Steve, because you've just hit upon my third in the Great Gags list.
Oh, okay.
And that is about Barbara clearing up before the people visit, and what Neil's got to say about that.
Yep.
What are you doing?
I've got somebody coming to look at the house.
Good idea, Mum. With the shine on that bureau, they'll never realise they're knee-deep in sewage.
I don't want people thinking I don't clean.
They won't, Mum. They'll just think you don't flush.
As promised, the carpet guy returns, and he gets into an argument with Barbara because he insists that he's going to install it, which she threatened him on pain of death the day before to do.
He's probably spent an hour juggling all the month's appointments just to believe.
Yep.
Yeah.
And of course she's saying, are you insane? How can you install the carpet when it's a foot under the water?
Yeah. And this comes back to what you're saying about the surrealness of everyone acting like the problem doesn't exist.
Yep. Anyway, she ends up splashing him with water, which is really funny. And when Ted returns so Ted's gone out to the town hall, which is where all the people in the neighbourhood who have been displaced by the flood are staying, and they're having a great old time by the sound of it. So when Ted returns from that, he finds that the carpet guys rolled Barbara up in the roll of yellow carpet and taped her mouth. Now,
we should, to paint the picture for the listener, this roll of carpet which he's rolled her in is up vertically.
Yes, it's up. It's not.
And so her feet would be in the water, but her head's sort of close to the ceiling, and she's got her mouth taped shut. And what I liked is it wasn't, gaffer tape, right? It was removalist brown tape sort of thing. So that ties into the whole house moving thing.
Yep.
I wonder if that was a deliberate decision. Anyhow, but this is brilliant. And I think this is the one moment where I agree with you about the surreality of the thing, if that's a word, is that there's no way that she would I know he's a big dude, but I don't think she would let herself be rolled up in a carpet and have her mouth taped shut, because I reckon she'd give him what for. But it is hilarious when you cut to that.
It is a big gag, and it's a big gag to end part one.
I don't want to be a downer or anything, but I did, as I was watching it, after I had a good hearty laugh at that, I did think, oh no, what if she accidentally tipped over if she was struggling, because she wouldn't be able to move her arms and legs and her mouth is taped shut. So she'd be dead, man, 100% dead. Because, if that falls over onto the floor, her head's now under a foot of water and she can only breathe through her nose.
Yep.
So it's amazing what one's mind...
That was a dark thought.
Yeah, it was a dark thought. I didn't mean to have it. It was just, but yes, I thought,
Thanks for sharing
what a nasty man.
Thanks for sharing it with all of us.
Suck all the fun out of it.
All right, so we're into the second half of the episode now, and Ted is commenting on the blue carpet, which is the one on the floor still.
The nice new one.
Under the water.
Which had only been installed the previous day.
That's right. It's the very same. And he says, this carpet is the exact same colour as my dad's varicose veins.
He really knows how to sell it, doesn't he?
Yeah. Anyway, then the real estate agent, who is quite rude throughout this inspection to Barbara, arrives with Mr. and Mrs. Chandler in tow. And they're here for this inspection of the house, this tour of the house. And they make their way through to the lounge, and Mr. Chandler wants to video the whole thing, and he's putting a commentary over the top of it, which is mostly about PowerPoints, I think. Mm-hmm. Might be TV.
This is, you've just hit upon my next brilliant gag. I've only got, 5 listed, and we've already got through 4.
Yeah.
And this is, so Mr. Chandler, who is filming away, he asks specifically, where's the aerial socket?
Yep.
And I love it, and Barb, just without even a gap, she goes, down there in the shallow end. And I just thought that was brilliant.
It is a very good one. And Ted does a similar thing where he says, note the high ceilings, they're ideal for stacking your furniture, and he catches himself as he's saying this and trails off mid-sentence. But yeah, that's really funny because they've obviously got the furniture stacked. Yes, the real estate agent says, perhaps we should move through to the kitchen, and Barbara says, please do before the tide comes in.
Yeah.
So she's finding it all a bit strange. The tour ends and they have a bit of a row. Ted's annoyed at Barbara's comments. No, is that fair enough? I think these are strange circumstances.
Well, yeah, that's right. All bets are off, really.
But then the real estate agent comes back in.
After she's, just been slagging him off.
Yeah. And she's about to sack him when he announces that they've just got a full price offer on the house.
Yeah. From the Chandlers.
Yeah.
So it's the first house they've looked at.
The first house they've looked at, it's flooded.
Yeah.
But they're in love with it. So, yeah, he gets results, this dude. Later on, they're making dinner, and Ted confides that he's starting to have second thoughts about the sale. Barbara says, yes, she was looking forward to having separate bedrooms. Mm-hmm. And Ted is caught a bit off guard by that. That's quite an amusing...
Yeah, with fair reason. Were you going to go into the fair reason, or should we leave it a mystery?
Let's do it.
Well, he's reached that age, which happens to us all, where he has to get up for wee-wees several times in the night.
Yep.
And even though they've got an ensuite, obviously she gets woken up by this every single time. She's getting no sleep, the poor woman.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't blame her.
So you'd much rather have separate rooms than do the Basil Fawlty and Sybil Fawlty thing, which is be in the same room but in separate beds. You're in single beds. So you get all the cons and none of the pros, if you know what I mean.
Yep.
All the drawbacks and none of the benefits. It's a stupid way to do things.
Yes, exactly.
And Bert and Ernie. Anyway, whatever. Is that the first time someone's drawn a parallel from Bert and Ernie to Basil and Sybil Fawlty?
Yeah, I'm not sure many people have connected those two. Then Ted lets the goldfish out for some exercise in the lounge.
That is brilliant. I did enjoy that.
He tells Neil to mind where he steps. And then he has a chat with Neil about the woman that he met the previous night, which I guess qualifies as the B plot in this episode.
Hey, we sold the house.
Good.
What's the matter?
That girl I met last night.
Yeah?
Well, I've told her I don't think it's going to work out.
Why not?
She's 42.
What's wrong with being 42?
Well, she got a lot of miles on the clock.
So, in the cold light of day, worried about her bodywork?
A bit.
Well, are the headlights on full beam or are they dipped?
No. Definitely full beam.
What about the paintwork?
Perfect.
Any sign of rust?
No.
Does shaft central lock in?
No, sorry, you lost me now.
So they're comparing this woman to a car by way of a metaphor. Anyway, he goes on to give Neil some advice about the situation to the effect that age is not so important. And having thought about this for a while, Neil pops around to this lady's house.
The character is never named in the show, but in the credits, I believe she's called Fran.
I haven't made much of that. I haven't really gone into any detail about
good.
That whole B plot.
I wouldn't bother.
Yes.
Why?
Oh, I didn't. Then last thing at night, at bedtime, Barbara's ready to go to bed and Ted's not there, so she hunts him down and he's downstairs looking at something.
What have you got there?
One of Linda's old books from infant school.
Where did you find that?
Drifted out from under the piano. Look at the drawings, huh?
Oh, that one looks like a big box and a couple of fat elephants.
It's you and me.
Is it?
The big box is our house. Look, she's written underneath, my home.
Oh. So many memories within these walls.
Do you remember your 40th birthday?
Oh, best party of my life. You got a peanut stuck up your nose.
And we all stood around that piano, singing.
That's right. You know, one of us really should learn to play it.
What about the time Neil came home and told us he'd passed an exam?
Yes, the little liar.
It's seen all sorts as this house.
And it's a lovely conversation where they end up talking it through and decide that they're going to stay put and take the house off the market, despite the fact that it's been flooded and is likely to be flooded again, I guess.
Which I thought was stupid. And in my notes I have said, I wish they'd sold the house, but, you know.
Oh.
You can't always have what you want. Yeah.
How unsentimental of you.
Yeah. But once the house has been flooded, it's game over.
See, I thought that was a nice end to the episode, so
Oh,
I'm
really?
gonna
Okay.
praise that later on.
Oh, well, no, I mean, I like the attitude of it. I just don't like the practicality of it because the black mould will be rising and, you know, where are they going to find the money to replace all this stuff with only £5,000 insurance? And I'm thinking too practically about it, Steve, but this couple had come in and they were going to throw money at Ted and Barbara. And all they didn't have to move out of town. All they had to do was, like, buy another house.
But it's the memories,
slightly
Jeff, the
higher
memories.
up on the hill. Oh, yeah, no, you're right. Yes, it is. It is the memories. This has actually been in a lot of sitcoms.
What is?
You know, the whole we're going to move house and they don't bother at the end. I mean, The Good Life is a classic example of that, where they were going to get this nice bigger property where they could do more farming and more animals, and each of them got so sentimental but didn't want to appear as though they were backing down, and they didn't want the other person to know that they were. Yeah, so it's a lovely, touching thing.
They didn't want to stay there because of Jerry and Margot next door.
That might have been a contributing factor.
Well, so now I've got a series of notes about the overall stuff in the show.
Oh.
Did you have anything before I launch into
No,
a bit
you
of this?
launch into your stuff. I've got heaps of notes.
All right, very good. So I like the fact that almost everything happens in the house. And I think that makes perfect sense given the amount of trouble they must have gone to flood the set somehow. And we've already said how impressive that was. There's only one thing that happens outside the house, which is the visit to Neil's lady friend, which I haven't discussed. And I think that's a bit of a miss as a B plot.
Yeah.
What do you
At the
think?
end, though, yeah, so it is a miss as a B plot. You didn't need it at all because they were doing such a good job with the whole flood situation. But I did like how it paid off at the end, where because this lady is significantly older than Neil by what I'm going to estimate is about 15 years. And so he'd, gotten up and they're having breakfast after a night of rumpy, as they say on Thin Blue Line. And she's saying, sit up properly at the table and get your elbows off the table, and she's treating him as though he's her son. Yeah, all that sort of stuff. And I thought that was quite nice. I didn't object to it.
Yeah, it just wasn't. It seemed a bit tacked on. I mean, there were little references to it earlier in the episode, but it really did seem tacked on at the end and not as strong as the other stuff that was going on.
Nah.
It's packed with gags, this episode, making use of the situation. There's loads of small sight gags, and one of the other ones, which we didn't mention, was... Well, that's strange. Ted glad wrapping his legs so he can go out into the water. Mm-hmm. That's a good example.
But even it was good. It was a nice bit of visual stuff. But he also says, "Do you want me to do yours?"
Yeah.
No, thank you. Who could turn down having their legs glad wrapped?
Any excuse to get his hands on
her legs,
Barbara's thighs,
yeah,
or calves, or whatever.
I think it was just as well because there didn't appear to be much left on the roll.
Oh, maybe he had an emergency.
Yeah,
an emergency roll.
He went through his glad wrap preps.
Yeah, maybe he's a prepper. Yes, and then there's also these longer running gags like the carpet, the real estate agent, which we've talked about. So I just imagine the writing room, which has got this unusual setup for a British UK sitcom. You know, all just sitting there brainstorming these ideas about how can we cram this thing full of gags using this great setup that we've got. And yeah, I like the surreal things, particularly the people appearing completely ignorant to the fact that this house is flooded, even when Barbara's pointing it out to them.
Yeah. And they did just wander in as though absolutely nothing was out of the ordinary. The couple, you know, the Chandlers. But then I thought to myself, well, they obviously had to make it from the car to the thing, so they would have already got wet. So we're not going to see footage of them going, ooh, my shoes are all wet and blah, 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 you know.
The only thing that really seems to happen is the real estate agent's cars.
Yeah, floats away.
Drifting down the street later on.
But they're all so cheerful about it. And yeah, almost ignoring the fact that there's a flood. It didn't detract from anything. As you say, it was the strength of the episode, I think.
Yeah. So next I'm acknowledging that I'm starting to relate to jokes about growing old together. Yeah. Such as adult children keeping each other awake, downsizing.
All that stuff.
Etc., etc.
Having to get up and wee 4 times in the night.
Yep. And I like the conclusion of that theme of the memories which are attached to the house and the fact that they decide to stay in the house despite the flooding risk. But you obviously weren't a fan of so much of that.
Well,
it didn't make logical sense.
No, it didn't.
Normally I'm the one that's saying, this just doesn't make sense. It's driving me crazy.
Yeah, apologies for all the noises happening in the background. But yeah, no, you're quite right, Steve.
I do wonder whether Barbara's sabotaging comments during the inspection betrayed her true feelings on the subject of selling the house. Like, is she subconsciously not wanting to sell it, so she's throwing these comments out?
Yeah.
Or
and I also think that she just is in sheer disbelief at the stupidity of these people.
Yeah. Open your eyes, people. What are we even doing here?
Yeah, exactly.
What about the cast, Jeff? What did you think of Gwen as Barbara and Sam as Ted?
Yep. Well, you know, Sam Kelly's doing Sam Kelly, which is great. Gwen, I found her very believable. How can I phrase this? At no point did I disbelieve that the character wasn't real and that it wasn't her. I never thought, oh, this actress is acting. You know what I mean? So it was all superbly well done. Great cast, I thought. Yeah, absolutely.
I like the fact that she's both a tough character. She can really put her foot down, but then when the flooding kind of hits home to her, she's also quite upset. Emotional and upset about that. So it's a really good mix of things in that character, I think, and she did a super job. What else? Yeah. It's time to go through some of your notes.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's start with what you were just talking about. Most of my notes are going to be absolutely agreeing with everything you're saying. So while I totally admire what Gwen was doing, yeah, she does a good job, and so much so that, to me, you know, the character's written to be exactly as you described at the top of the episode. She's sort of, you know, forthright and grumpy and all this sort of stuff. So I didn't like Barbara at all. I don't like Barbara. I actively dislike her. But that goes to show how well it's written, how good a job she's doing. And I think it's also, earlier when I mentioned I had to go and watch another episode because I think I'm missing out on some stuff that makes that character so appealing to people so that the show would keep rolling and not get cancelled after one series.
Yep.
Anyway,
and did you find it?
Didn't turn that around, no, because the episode I watched was one in which she slashed the tyres of a disabled driver. She quit her job because she'd humiliated one of the customers by inspecting her buttocks in the waiting room and shouting out loudly that she had an itchy bum and all this other stuff. So she's doing all this stuff in this other episode I watched that was completely deplorable. And I'm just thinking, you're not helping the case, Barbara. So I've described her in my notes, Steve-O, as a no-fun battle axe. I do love her taste in carpet colour, though. Sunflower yellow would be awesome. But I can't see why they'd base a show around that character. So, like, as you said, she's the voice of reason among all these mad people. But she is a killjoy and she's a general downer. And as the description said, she's forthright and no-nonsense. But I think that's a euphemism for grumpy and snarky and unlikable. But I did think about this, Steve, and yes, you're absolutely right. So she's had no sleep. She wakes up. Well, the carpet all went wrong all day before that, so she's having to deal with all these incompetent idiots, and then now her house is flooded, and then more idiots come around, so I can totally understand why she's grumpy.
And Ted's been squeaking all night and dreaming of
Carol Smiley. What was she doing? Wanting him to...
Spank her or something
Spank her, yeah. And you don't want to be told that first thing in the morning, do you?
No one needs that first thing in the morning.
No, that's right. And I was thinking about grumpy characters, Steve. I don't want this to drag on too long, but anyway, like Mrs. Boswell from Bread, right? So I think of Ma Boswell from Bread as being a battle axe, but I think she was that way because she's trying to hold this wayward family together.
Oh, yeah.
She's the only thing holding it all together. She's got
from Joey.
Yeah, that's right, because he's the man. And I think she has to be that way. She wasn't always that way, but everyone else in the family being the way they are has turned her into that person. I think it's similar with Barbara, and in fact it's worse for Barbara because she's got to go out to work and deal with idiots all day. Then she gets home and Neil hasn't got his act together and Ted's off with the fairies and her sister's clearly a loon and her co-workers are morons. And so, do you know what I mean? And so I just think that that's why she is the way she is. But all that aside, which I completely understand, and other episodes may get you on side with her, but I didn't. I was never on her side, and I was on everyone else's side. And so, as I've said in my notes, I think I'm missing something important here because we're not seeing her daughter, we're not seeing her friends. There's all this relationship stuff that we're not seeing. And all of this, by the way, is just about her character. Like, this show is incredibly well made. What they achieved with this flooding in that set is amazing. And I was thinking of the poor sound dudes, because people are moving from room to room. They have to deliver their lines. And somehow they kept the sloshing to a minimum, because every time someone moved, it's slosh, slosh, slosh. And if you were actually in that room, I reckon it would have been 10 times louder than the sound appears on the show.
Yep. Well, and all the safety things as well.
Oh,
precisely. Have big lights in there and stuff like that.
Yeah. So it's a technical wonder, and it's packed with gags. And and I'll let you get a word in, and then.
Oh no, I'm really moving towards my conclusion. So if you've got anything else,
look, I have got something else, Steve, and I want to talk about young Neil, or as I like to call him, Leroy or Jacko. So he's in this fine tradition of these womanizing dudes in their 20s, right? So you've got Jacko from Brushstrokes. Obviously, and they've all got thinning hair. So Jacko, but Jacko's more charming and better looking than Neil. But I think I got more a Jacko vibe off Neil. Yeah, that's right. Well, there you go. And also Leroy from Still Open All Hours. Granville's son is a total ladies' man, but he's also, thinning in his early 20s, but he's there, and all the ladies just love him and all that sort of stuff. And so I think, there's a Jacko, Neil, Leroy thing going on there. I don't quite know what it is. I didn't put much thought into it other than, that's a little bit like that.
You just got that vibe.
I've got the vibe, but I did do a bit of an age thing, as I always do. So the actor, when this was going out, was 28. He might have been 29.
Well, that's about spot on, isn't it?
Yeah, so I think the character's meant to be a little bit younger, maybe 25, something like that. But if you're thinking he's 28, no wonder they want him to move out. And this is before the trend of, people live at home later and later nowadays. Yep.
That was before the housing crisis.
Yeah, that's right. Get out of there,
Having
Neil.
to have your kids hang around
until you
die.
Yeah, so and it's just
I'm waiting for a flood just to get rid of the kids. Right. That's what they say now.
Yeah, we're moving to a low-lying area.
I'll open the door and let the tide take the kids out.
Yeah. Oh no, I've left the hose on. Yeah. So it's just they made a big deal of it, right? Because of the age difference, and he's talking about how Fran is 42, and it's only 13 years older than him or something like that. Anyway, doesn't matter. Well done, whoever played Neil. Or Leroy, as I go to keep calling him. He's got a really cool name. What was it again, Steve? Do you remember?
Oh, you mean the actor?
No, the actor.
Benedict Sanderford.
I think that's a cool name.
It's a monkish name. Benedictine monk.
Yeah. Okay, and so I want to bring this to a conclusion, but I've just got a few more notes, Steve. And that is that, and this speaks to the surreal thing that you were raising. And I thought nothing about this show was a stretch of logic, and that comes back to me saying about the laws of physics and all this sort of stuff. All the cause and effect has been beautifully laid out. Nothing doesn't work, because if you're going to sell your house, of course, you're going to have new carpet put in, but you'd think, isn't it a coincidence that when they have the carpet put in, then there's going to be a flood and all this. Yep. But it all just works so beautifully, and there's nothing that causes you to lose your suspension of disbelief.
Yeah, nothing takes you out of it.
And yet, if it happened to you and you told a friend about this, they wouldn't believe you. It's quite... I thought it bordered on disaster-com. It almost had a hint of chance in a million about it. And
interesting you should say that.
Oh, cool. I'm looking forward to your comment on that. But yes, I've said here they made a lot of hay with the whole flooding plotline. There were just so many water gags. Like, we've brought up a few, but there were just so many, and you never got tired of it. Well, I didn't get tired of it. Just because I didn't like Barbara herself, it doesn't mean I didn't think this is great. So plenty of really good jokes. And again, the technical achievement of what they did, I just, hats off.
Very good. Yeah, I just said that overall it's a very fun, quirky episode. And quality-wise, I thought it was very consistent with the others that I had time to watch. They're all pretty solid.
Right.
So yes, Barbara, definitely worthwhile watching. I said a solid mid-tier sitcom. And I'll put it in the same bracket as The British Empire, Chance in a Million.
Oh, Steve.
And Miranda, all which had their moments of eccentricity or surrealness.
Yeah. Maybe we'll have to do a special one day on our different takes on what constitutes surreal and what doesn't.
Yeah, that would be interesting. So thanks, Jonno, for suggesting this one. I always enjoy discovering something new and something quality, so
yeah,
much appreciated. And I think you're choosing the next one.
Yes,
what have you got to say about it?
Well, all I'm going to say about it, Steve, is that it'll be October, so it's our traditional Halloween episode.
Yep.
So I've already selected it, and while it's not strictly a Halloween episode, the series in question, which I won't reveal, did have a Halloween episode. Wasn't a particularly great one. So, but I think when you find out what it is, the nature of this show itself lends itself perfectly to Halloween stuff. And it's not What We Do in the Shadows or anything like that. That's another show where you could... No, the Addams Family? Yeah, the Munsters? No, none of that. But yeah, there's certain shows that I think you can be slack and take the easy way out and say that any episode of some of these wacky sitcoms can qualify as Halloween.
Garth Marenghi's Dark Place?
Yeah, totally.
Question mark?
Yeah. Well, spoilers. No, it's not.
Oh, shame.
But it's a sitcom you'll absolutely know and have watched.
Oh, great. Well, I'll look forward to that. Alrighty. Thanks for joining us, and see you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Join us next time on Sitcom Showdown, when we'll be putting another 5-star episode under the microscope. And in the meantime, you can contact us with feedback on Facebook, Twitter @Sitcom Showdown, or by email sitcomshowdown@gmail.com.